that was rock bottom for me. I literally, after I blew those accounts, I really went through it, and there were nights where the, there were nights where I was on. What is up, guys? It is James, and I am back with another video. So today I want to talk about the psychological mindset shift that I had to go through to become profitable and eventually take out my first payout. If you didn't know, I took my first payout and it was a 10K payout. Here's proof of it hitting my bank account. October 14th, I made a whole video, but here it is hitting my bank account, and I took a 10K payout from TopStep. It says $1,980 because TopStep does take a $20 fee out of all your payouts. And yeah, that was pretty cool when it hit my bank account. So before we get into what I had to change psychologically, I want to kind of talk about my background with trading. So I did start trading a while back. I started in 2021 trading Forex. I didn't do too well. I saw some success doing it, but didn't do too well doing it. Then I moved to futures beginning of 2021. And yeah, I would sometimes pass evals. It'd be based on luck, but I would get evals. I would jump straight to passing like 5 evals all at once, and then I would have like 5 XFAs. And when I had a 5 XFAs, I still didn't really know what I was doing. I would still be scared to go into markets, still be scared that I would do something dumb. And eventually I did end up blowing my 5 XFAs from TopStep. And I did make a video on that actually, and I posted it. And during that time, I went into a pretty big depression after that. I had a lot of self-doubt. I didn't know if trading was for me. And I really questioned if I wanted to give up or not. And thankfully I didn't, because that one last push through is what got me to really lock in and focus on trying to really make this work. So I knew something had to change, and my psychology is what had to change. So let's hop on to what I had to change. We're going to hop on to TradingView right here, and I'm going to mark out, show you guys the psychological shifts that I had to make. So first thing I had to change was, I'm going to type this all out for you guys, but first thing I had to change was my patience. So patience, number one, patience. So patience. So patience. So what do I mean by patience? Patience, obviously, you've heard this before probably, but be patient when you're trading. Only take the best possible setups. For me, I wasn't very patient. I wouldn't wait for the best possible setups, and I really had to understand that. So let's type that out real quick. Only take the best setups. Obviously, you want to only take the best setups possible. Second, if you don't see your setup, then you don't trade. So no setup, no trade. So that is something I really struggled with. Sometimes, even if my setup wasn't there, I would still take a trade. I wasn't waiting for the best possible setups. I wasn't waiting for my setup. I would take a trade just because I want to take a trade. Sometimes I could go without, I would go like, I was literally taking trades every single day. Like, I kid you not, I was looking for a trade every single day, and I just was very impatient when I was trading. So in order to combat this, in order to combat all your psychological mindset, all your psychological issues, you need to understand why you have these psychological issues. So for me, understanding why I was impatient, well, I really thought about it, really reflect on why I was being impatient. And for me, my reasoning for being impatient. So my reasonings for being impatient was, one, because I want to get a payout. I want to get a payout quick. Wanted to get a payout quick. I wanted to get a payout quick. There were a lot of people doubting me, a lot of people that weren't really sure if trading was going to work out. And I wanted to get a payout quick. I wanted to scale to a 5x a phase quick because I wanted to show the people that were doubting me, the people that didn't really believe in the vision that I saw with trading. I wanted to prove them wrong. And that just resulted in me taking bad setups, just it resulted in me taking more losses that could have been avoided. So that was one reason I was impatient. The second reason was when I was on eval stage, I was still very impatient. I wasn't waiting for the correct setups. And the reason I was being patient was because I wanted to pass the eval stage quickly and get funded. So there was a moment in time where I was stuck on the eval stage. I can never pass the top step combine. I can never get to that 3K profit target. And it took me many losses to eventually realize, maybe I need to be patient. Maybe let me just be patient with the setups. Let me be patient on these combines, Let me actually pass these combines correctly with the correct setups, because if I pass these with luck and I get to the XFA stage, I'm going to pay my activation fee, pay all that money just for me to not be disciplined with my patience and eventually end up blowing my XFAs like I did last time. So those were my two reasonings on why I was impatient. You need to really understand why you're having these psychological issues, and those were the two reasons why I was being impatient. So patience was the first thing that I had to fix. The second thing that I had to fix was, let me type this out again. Number two was greed slash FOMO. So greed slash FOMO. What is greed slash FOMO? So greed and FOMO is basically when you want to make more money, or you just want to get into the market because greed is you want to make money, and then FOMOing in is when you want to enter into the market, take a trade because you see a trade moving and you want to get in so that you could potentially make money. And FOMO and greed go hand in hand because you FOMO in because you're greedy. So those go hand in hand. My issue was that at market open or like any time during New York AM session, if I saw price trending, if I saw it trending moving with momentum, I would literally take a trade just because it was moving. No, I wouldn't wait for a retrace. I wouldn't wait for a setup. I'd literally take a trade because I just saw it going in one direction and I didn't have a good entry, and I would end up either longing at the top, get wicked out, and I'd, take a pretty bad loss, or I would take a short at the very bottom, and I would literally just take losses because I would long at the top or short at the bottom. And that is not what you want to do. That is not the strategy I want to follow, but that is what I was doing. And let me actually type that out. So I was seeing price trend and entering. So that is something you don't want to do. That led to bad entries and eventually end up into losses. And then third thing, that led to me revenge trading. So since, if you get greedy, sometimes you take a loss, you end up revenge trading because you lost money and you want to make it bad. That is all greed because you want to make money. If you take a loss, just walk away. You don't want to stack it up. That is how most traders fail, is they revenge trade, end up blowing their account. I believe that's how most traders blow their X face, because it's all the wins that they accumulated, they end up tilting, and they take one loss and they end up tilting and taking multiple loss, take a revenge trade, take a loss, and it adds up and they lose their account in 1 day. So that is not what we want to do. And it's easy to say, don't revenge trade, don't get greedy, don't FOMO into a trade. I knew those things. I knew these things are bad and you shouldn't do them, but I was still doing it. So I really had to understand why I was getting greedy and why I was FOMOing into trades. So let's write these reasonings down actually. Reasonings for getting greedy / having FOMO. So number one, so this is also with being impatient, but my first reason for being greedy / getting FOMO was because I want to make money quickly. I wanted to make money quickly. I wanted to get my first payout. I wanted to show that trading is possible. You can make a lot of money with trading, and that just results in me losing money, trying against every trade, trying against every mood led to me taking bad setups. I was being impatient. These all go hand in hand. So that is the first reason why I was being greedy / getting FOMO. Second reason was because I didn't want to end the day red, instead of just walking away. So let's write that down. Didn't want to end the day with a red P&L. So this is just being greedy because sometimes you'll be red on the day and you don't like seeing that red P&L. It could be as small as just being down $15. I got really good at, if I'm down $15, sometimes I'll take a break-even trade and I'll be red because there's fees or the trade slipped and I ended up a little bit red. And before, I used to see that and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm down $15. Let me just try to scalp. Let me just try to scalp and get that $15 back so I'm at least not red for the day. So that was pretty bad. I realized that was pretty bad because, that's basically gambling, just trying to get the money back. And that is exactly not what we want to do. We are not gamblers. We are all trading with probabilities, and you want to have the probabilities in your favor, and you want to have a good edge. When you're gambling, you have no edge. You're quite literally just trying to make money without any reasoning. And that could be very, very risky. You can end up blowing your account by just doing that. So you need to stay away from that. I learned my lesson when that was happening back then, and that is something I do not do anymore. I, do not get greedy. I do not FOMO. If my draw on liquidity gets taken without an entry, I step off the charts. I walk away. My day's done. There is no entry to my draw on liquidity, and that's totally fine. You got to be okay with it. You got to learn how to just walk away when your setup's not there and when there's nothing for you to take anymore. So that was the second thing I had to really hone in on and really learn how to control. Being greedy is something you just got to learn, because wanting to make money just resulted in me losing more money. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing that really helped with my psychology was, this is not really a psychology, but it helps with your psychology, and that is sticking to one strategy. So 3, sticking to a proven strategy. That is really important. You need to stick to one model, one strategy that is proven to work. So sticking to one proven model / strategy. Yep. So this is really, really important, because if you don't have a strategy or a model that is proven, then you're basically gambling again, because you have no reason. You don't know what works. If you have a proven strategy that works, you shouldn't have psychological issues because that you should be able to trust your system that you're following. So for me, I follow a continuation strategy. Continuation strategy that is very simple strategy. It is a very simple strategy, so I don't overcomplicate it. Don't overcomplicate it. And to learn the strategy, I always saw on like TikTok and all that, like continuous strategies are the move. I tried learning continuation strategies on YouTube, and with all the free information online, there's so much information online. That's one issue. There's so much you don't know what works. There's a lot of strategies in this world, and they all work to a certain extent. Some work better than others. You can use those strategies, and for me, I'm better at one-to-one RR trades, and I don't do well with like reversal trades where they're like higher R because then you have to hold them longer. So I'm better with continuation strategies. That's just how it is for me. You guys might be better with reversal strategies, but it's all depends on how well you can stick to the strategy and how well it works for you and your psychology. So with this continuation strategy, it helps with my psychology because it allows me to be patient. There's only like I when I back tested the strategy, I realized there's only going to be like two, maybe three setups each week. Sometimes there might be none, and you got to be okay with that. But knowing that my strategy presents itself that many times allows me to be patient, knowing going to the market like there might be not a trade today, and um, that's okay. And then it also helps me with greed because when I'm trading, once my draw on liquidity gets taken, I walk away. My strategy is heavily based on draw on liquidity, and it is makes it very, very simple. If there's no draw on liquidity, then there's going to be no trade. So that is what helped me. I did join a mentorship. Some people don't like joining mentorships, but without a mentorship, I can guarantee you I probably would not have become profitable. I probably wouldn't have gotten a payout this soon. So if you want, I don't have a mentorship, but if you want, go look for a mentorship. That is what helped me. Um, and yeah, those were the three things that really I had to change: patience, greed, and sticking to one proven model. Um, and going into as I was going through my journey to trying to get to my first payout, I always heard traders say patience. Patience is something you need to have. Not having greed is something that you need to have. Not FOMOing into trades is something you need to have. And just following one model is something you need to have. But I still didn't follow those. I still had those issues. So what exactly got me to have this psychological mindset shift to actually lock in? And that was me. What got me to actually change was for me to hit rock bottom, really. I had to hit rock bottom, and hitting rock bottom was when I blew my 5 XFA accounts that I posted a couple months ago. And that was rock bottom for me. I literally, after I blew those accounts, I really went through it. And there were nights where, the, there were nights where I was literally on the side of my bed right here, and I was crying. I was crying. I would pray to God, and I would look for guidance. I asked for guidance and looked for light at the end of the tunnel. And I really had to self-reflect on my actions because I was in a pretty bad situation. My money was getting drained from these evals. I spent $1,000 on my activation fees. and I blew it. I was completely lost in that moment, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I should just give up. And it was truly just hitting rock bottom for me to really make me decide to make a change and really lock in with these behaviors that I was doing. So, last thing I kind of want to talk about is journaling. And I just made a video on journaling. I just posted it, and go watch that after this video because journaling is truly, truly the last thing that can really help you out with your trading. So, last thing, journaling. So, journaling was something that I always did, but I never journaled correctly. So, I always I only journaled my trades back then. I used to only journal trades where I would take it, I would journal if it was a loss, journal if it was a win, and I never said anything about the trade. I would write reasons why I entered a trade, but that was it. Um, but now I journal literally every single day. I journal wins, losses, break evens, and I journal days where I don't take a trade. And I just literally do a market recap. I say why I didn't take a trade today. I said if conditions were bad. That is something that I had issues with, was staying at the market. It goes in with greed and FOMOing into trades. I journaled why the market conditions were bad to stay out of, because a lot of you guys need to just understand market conditions and understand when you need to get out, when you need to stay out of the market. So journaling, and then if you do take a trade, you need a journal if the trade followed your setup, and if it did, good for you. But if you took a trade and it didn't follow your setup or your strategy, why did you take that trade? And most of the time, you take a trade because of a psychological issue, like you were impatient, or you had greed, or you FOMOed in, or it was a revenge trade. So always document if it followed your strategy, and if it didn't, why did you take that trade, and was it because of a psychological issue? And really reflect on that, because if it's a psychological issue that you're having, you need to understand why you're having those psychological issues, and you need to combat that and make sure you don't do it again, because it's just going to result in you taking more losses and you losing more money. So that those are the four things that you need to change, four things that you need to just really implement the journaling aspect, because that is game changer, really understanding your emotions. And you need to look back and go over your journal and reflect on what you need to change, what you're doing good, and how you can always improve. So that is the video for today. It is a really, really long one, and I hope you guys made it to the end of this video, because I really do believe mastering your psychology in trading is the biggest, most important aspect to staying in the trading game for a long time, not blowing your accounts, and making that is the one thing that will help you to really becoming profitable. So I really do appreciate you guys for watching, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.